Hello, folks. Welcome. Today, I want to do a full art review on one of my favorite tarot decks, and that would be the Druid Tarot deck. Personally, I myself, I am a wannabe Druid, never to be a Druid, but I am a wannabe Druid. It's such a fascinating culture, or was such a fascinating culture. There's a renaissance now around the world, mostly in the UK though. So there is a resurgence, and I've always been quite interested in that particular culture, although there's not very much written about it. I mean, truly written about it, because they had no written language, the Druids. It was all oral histories. In any case, this is a smaller deck. Not the smaller deck, the smaller box. I got the bigger one as well. And it's a nice box, of course. And you have this really good little book. It gives you all the information you need. I got the bigger book somewhere here in my bookshelves. There it is. See, I got the bigger book as well, and that's a really good book as well. It's bigger for sore eyes like mine. So let's do an art review on these cards as best as we can. And I always call it an art review because it's never a critique. I don't know enough about art to actually do critiques on art, but I can do reviews based on what my eye is seeing and what I like personally. And I want to introduce, and I introduced this the last time in a package opening. This is a wand made out of Priscelli bluestone, and I'm going to be using this as a pointer to guide you when I'm talking about particular parts of the artwork on the cards. And I'm going to replace the little screwdriver I used to use in the past, that I used to use as my pointer, with this, and I'm thrilled to have it. So anyway, let's start. Now, the first thing I notice, let's try and get this a little bit more in the middle here. The first thing I notice about the Fool in this deck is the precipitous nature of the declining angle on this little hill edge that he is walking on along with the dog. Now, in this particular card, you can see the incline is steep here. Most of the other cards, like the RWS cards, the standard one, I was looking at the Radiant deck the other night, the RWS Radiant deck, and the Fool, that deck is just absolutely gorgeous. But the Fool in most of the other cards I see, the ledge or the edge that they're coming through, there's a flat spot. It's coming down, but there's a flatter, more horizontal spot where their foot is planted and the edge is right there, as if they're pausing before they leap into the unknown. But here, it's scary because the incline is very steep, and it's like this guy is going full speed into the future. He wants to know what's out there, and he's not waiting for anything. He's not pausing. He's not thinking. He's jumping right in there. And the artwork, of course, is spectacular. I like that on this particular Fool, I like the feathering, almost like hair that comes out. On other cards, it's like more of a braid or a laurel or something that's coming out here. But here you have these strands, almost like feathers, and that's very nice. And I think the composition of it comes together nicely with his hair. That's kind of stringy and sticking out here. But if you didn't have these feathers to put this into perspective, then he just looked messy. Like he didn't cut his hair for a long time. But because these feathers are here, to my eye, it makes the whole area right here composed very well. And I also like that in this one, he's carrying the stick over his left shoulder with the bag hanging here. So you can get more of a feel for the entire, well, I guess we could call it wand, that he's carrying here with his little travel bag. And of course he has this bush instead of the flowers. And his dog, I think, in this picture, seems a bit more attentive to his presence. And the dog also seems as if, okay, I'm warning you, but I'm coming too, you know. I'm warning you that the edge is coming, but I'm coming with you. And he's on the precipitous incline here as well. So these two are ready to go into the future. Really like this card. Very nice. Yeah, very nice. Now we have the Magician. Okay. First thing I noticed that there is no infinity sign over his head. It's down here on his belt. I like that. I really like that compositionally, because up here it lets his head, the pate of his head, just become part of the stonage right here. And it's absolutely gorgeous in composition to me. And of course, because this is a Druid deck, it's more outdoors than some of the other deck. The outdoors becomes a very important part of the artistic scheme. And now you got the rooster here. I really like the rooster right there. Very nice. And see, the feathers on its tail is sort of like the feathers that's coming out of the hat of the fool that we saw previously. You know, these feathery-like items here is like the rooster's feathery tail. Yeah, very nice. Okay, and another thing, of course, as above, so below, the infinity sign here. The composition on all these cards is spot on. You know, I don't know, the artwork, I'm sure it says somewhere who did the artwork. Illustrated by Will Worthington. Will Worthington, illustrated by Will Worthington. And the composition is superb. And I like the colors, the coloring of the darker blue against the more Percelli bluestone here. And Percelli bluestone, which these Stonehenge walls are made of, stones are made of, is the same Percelli bluestone as my pointer is made out of. Same thing, and that's why Percelli bluestone just fascinates me. And I have a palm stone here, and I have a few other items made of Percelli bluestone. Now, what I want you to notice on this one is the positioning of the sword, the cup, the wand, and the pentacle. The sword is up front. I think if you look at most of the cards out there, and I know for sure the RWS Magician, the sword is in the back. And I think the cup is here, the pentacle is in the back there, and the wand is front and center. But here, the sword becomes the focal point of the four emblems. And for some reason, I just like that. It's just, it works. It works. It really works for me. I like the sword being front and center. The artwork, superb. Composition, superb. Proportion, superb. Rooster, I think my favorite part of the card is the rooster and the sword. Yeah, very good, very nice. All right, now we have the High Priestess. Now the first thing I notice is she's got her pillars, B and the J pillar in the RWS and most other cardstock, but you don't see it here. You don't see it embedded in the stone, because again, Druidism, you're outdoors, you're celebrating nature, your connection with nature. Absolutely love the moon in the sky here. The book, it's probably the Book of Shadows right here, who knows. But again, you have to look at the overall composition. The proportions on this, you know, the arms to the body, to the height of the woman, to her position behind this stone tablet table, and this little tiger or whatever it is in the back here, a cat of some sort, a feline of some sort, could be a bobcat, could be a lynx, could be many different animals in the feline family. Absolutely stunning. And if you see these mountains here that go up right here, if you didn't have this white rippling right here, now that's a combination, I think, of shore ripple and glare or reflection from the moon. And it's perfect because it delineates the middle of the card as well and brings the whole card into perfect view, I think. So compositionally, so far in these cards, the composition is outstanding. Outstanding. And I love it. And I love her dress and this vest, this pullover that she's using. Very nice. And another aspect of this card that fascinates me is the fact that the wind is blowing from her left to her right. And of course you can see her hair going this way and her cape blowing this way. It is a spectacular way, in my judgment, to show motion. Makes the card come alive because you can almost see the wind coming through this precipice or this opening between these two cliffs here. Phenomenal. The artwork is just top shelf. Very nice card. Now, if the RWS priestess is gorgeous as well, and she's sitting there, and she's between the pillars, and she's on her throne, and she's got the moon at her feet usually, and that's very nice as well. But it's indoors, and that's fine. I like indoors, but because this is a Druid deck, and the Druid culture is an outside culture, a natural, nature-loving, seeking culture. This is perfect. And again, I like this feline in the back here. Okay, that's good on that one. Now, what's next? The lady, the Empress. Now, I like the fact that this Empress, she's in full bloom, as you can say, with child. And the fertility nature, the mothering nature, the compassionate nature. She's staring down at her stomach area and just delighted. You can see the radiance in her face, delighted with the fact that she's with child and all the abundance that she has ready for that child when he steps into the world. Now, I like this little froggy monster here. It looks like a little frog, again, or symbol of fertility, the figurine of fertility. Very, very nicely put. And again, notice the composition. Everything is in harmony with everything else in this picture. Everything, the river that flows, and you can tell, you see this flow coming here? Although it dips behind here, you know, her presence here, and comes out here, it's almost as if you can see the water flowing and trickling here, and the composition is perfect. It's like the angle is perfect. Everything is spot on. And of course, her feet going toward the water, because, you know, water is all giving of all life. Very nice. And her throne, I like the fact that it's first of all, I like the fact that she's outdoors again. And this is an outdoor throne, and you can see it's a little weathered up here. You know, a little weathered, the throne. Just the way wood should look that is outside, that is kept outside. Absolutely stunning. Now we have the Lord, or the Emperor, as it were. First thing I look at are the stag horns. You know, for obvious reasons, it denotes power. I think to me, to my eye, it denotes even a stronger, more virile power than a crown, just a crown without the horns. And because he has the face shields coming down here, usually the Emperor has his crown and he has long flowing hair coming down on the sides in other decks. On this one, he has the helmet shield coming down, again denoting warrior status, power status. He is completely in charge. And if you notice his arm here, I was talking about proportions earlier and the perfect proportions. His arm here is a little out of proportion to the rest of the artwork here and the size of his body, but it's perfect because what it does is it pulls your eyes in. After you first look at this and the power that it denotes, you'll see the arm here, and that's his fingers saying, grasping his knee and saying, I am Lord. I am confident. I am the master of my surroundings. And of course, holding this, the staff, and this is a true Druid staff here. Love it. I like that they let the staff go outside of the boundaries here, instead of, you know, cutting it short so you could see like the whole staff. It would be like it's floating in the air. I don't like it. This denotes that it's up against the ground where it should be, you know, firmly planted in the earth. And again, it's because of the love of nature. You know, staff, wood, tree, bound to the earth. Glorious, glorious. And the rams here. Everything denotes a powerful, natural majesty. Even the throne, the back of the throne is rock. And I would not be surprised if it's Priscilla bluestone. Again, the same stone that they made the inner walls of Stonehenge out of. The bird, the hawk, the raven, the eagle, whatever you want it to be, it is. Coloring, perfect. You got the red up here that blends in with the power of the bronze here. Blends in the red with the bronze. And then you got a brighter blue. This is the middle, the center of his power, which is calm, strong, and direct, clear-headed, forthright. And here you have this green that denotes regalness. You know, I am power. I am strength and knowledge and wisdom. I am regal. That's what the color scheme says to me. And of course, you got this room right here. Very, very spectacular card. Very nice. And now we have the High Priest, or the Hierophant. First thing I notice is usually the Hierophant has his fingers like this in most other cards. Here, it's like this. So it's almost denoting, again, the natural exuberance of being outside under the stars in nature. And he is saying, I am blessing everything around me. And when I pose this symbol to you, that means I am part of the nature that I adore. So I'm free to be natural. But there is also, with this closed fist here, there is also rules to be followed. There is a hierarchy. There is a system that we all must live by, a natural system to be part of nature. And his horns, again, not on his head this time, but on his throne. It is exceptional with the sun above here. Color scheming, again, is perfect. Now, this kind of looks like the Scottish weave, the clan weave of the Scots. You know, different clans have different pattern weave. Here, it is exceptional. And then the green again, denoting a certain regalness, but not full regal all the way down like they did with the Lord, or, you know, the emperor. His stops midway. It doesn't go all the way. So it's not, in my estimation, it's not God-given. He has gotten his regalness from his Lord, but it's not God-given, because the regalness does not actually touch the earth. And you have the bird here that denotes the peacefulness of nature, and the fact that you may have vested in you the power of mankind and womankind, and you may have inherited the earth, but I am nature. I am free. I am peaceful. And if I grow tired of the power structure, I fly away to the next branch, and nature continues unabated. Nature will go on forever as peaceful and loving and meek. And then, of course, you go to scriptures and you say, and the phrase, the meek shall inherit the earth, because after all, the power of mankind, if not used properly, goes by the wayside. The meek, the peaceful, the nature that does not harm any other bits of nature, will reign supreme. That's what I get out of this. And again, compositionally, everything is good, except again on the fist. It's a little bit out of proportion, but I think that is so your eye goes there and you realize the power, the freedom, the natural exuberance of the high priest, but also the dogma that he must follow, attached to the stone, because this is made out of stone. His throne looks to be made out of stone and wood, and it is affixed to that, solid, grounded. So there are rules that must be adhered to. Yet let's love nature, and let's realize that this is real nature here, in this living creature. All of nature, at its most pristine, resides in this creature. Okay, very nice. Now we have the lovers. And again, what really comes out to me here is the pure affection. I've seen the lovers on many cards, and always one of my favorite cards. But here it's pure, unadulterated affection. It's not just sensual, although it is that, but it's affection. And you can, just the way she drapes her hand here over his neck, and she places her other hand gently here on his shoulder, and he on the nape of her neck. Just, you can see very gently, there's no grasping. It's just a gentle laying of his hand onto her smooth skin. And the warmth, you can almost feel the warmth that this hand is feeling from the nape, from her neck here, the nape of her neck. Very beautiful. And you have the deer looking on. And because the deer, again, is a pure part of nature in its wildness, it is looking on, and it can appreciate love and affection, true love and affection, and it's absorbing it. You see around it, you see this kind of burst of light here, and then it edges off in yellow. It's like he's looking, or she's looking, at this pure love between two other creatures, and it enriches his life or her life as a deer. I'm going to say her here because it looks like a doe, and it's beautiful. One creature acknowledging the affection and love between two other creatures. Very nice, very nice. The Chariot. Now, I like this chariot. And upon first reflection now, looking at it again, I mean, I've looked at these cards before, but looking at it now, I always had a feeling that perhaps the horses were too close to the border and we were missing some of the majesty of the horse's head. But I look at it now and it denotes movement to me, doesn't it? To you? It's like this horse is coming straight at us. He doesn't care about borders. He doesn't care about fences. He's coming at us. And he's got his eyes. See, this guy is looking away. This guy is looking straight at us. It's like we are coming. And she is straining back on the reins here a little bit, almost like saying, okay, horses, we don't have to go this fast. We don't have to go forward this fast, but this horse wants it. This horse is thinking maybe we could go another way. This horse knows where he wants to go and he's going. And of course, the majesty of her cape fluttering in the wind. She's going forward no matter what, but she's thinking about it. This horse is thinking about it. Which way should we go? This is the determining factor right here. He's going straight, and I think he's going to carry everybody with him. And the sun here, the clouds, they use the clouds as the sunburst. Not rays, but the clouds. It looks to me like they are using the clouds as the sunburst. So this picture has a lot of excitement to it. You can almost hear the hooves of the horses beating and the crunching of the chariot wheels on the ground. And she is in complete control of everything. Even if the horses are figuring straight, maybe we go left or right, she has control. And she will pull those reins where ultimately she wants to go, taking into consideration the boldness going forward and the contemplation of perhaps taking another path. A very exciting card. Very exciting. Now we have strength. Now I have always enjoyed, and I know not every deck the animal is an actual lion, but I have always thought of the lion as being the preeminent animal in the strength card. Here, it's a boar. And it's striking. It's absolutely striking. The boar. And I think it's because of the bronze color of the boar against this bright red. Proportions, again, are really good. They went a little bigger, I think, proportionally on the boar for purpose. They wanted you to look at her first, okay? And then as your eye sweeps down, the boar becomes bigger. His head is thrusting out, and then you focus on him. So it's almost, when I first looked at this card, it was almost as if I were gliding. First, my attention went here, because you have her dark raven hair, or auburn hair, beautiful red cape, and this light pattern of sky in the back. So you focus on her, and then you follow the red down, and then you go to the boar, who is powerful, and his snout comes way out enough to make him now the feature you're looking at and you will stay looking at. If this snout was a little shorter, I don't think you'd get the same gravity of presence that you get with the snout being this long. One more thing I want to point out before we leave this card is the sword. Now, the sword is here on the ground, and I'm sitting here trying to remember other decks of strength where there's a weapon in it. I may be wrong, but I cannot think of too many. I know the regular standard RWS strength card doesn't have one. And that's where my mind goes in comparison, not comparison, but just to, to compare. My mind always goes back to the standard RWS cards. and I don't remember a sword with the strength, and it lends a certain something. And I tell you what, because compositionally, because they put this boar here with the longer snout that focuses you on the boar after you've taken in the woman. If there were no sword here, this side of the card would look almost empty, almost unfinished. Try and imagine this card on the bottom without this sword on this side. It was just green grass like all the rest. It would be almost as if it's unfinished, almost as if something were missing. And I think when the original artist looked at this, he or she realized, and let's see, that was, like I said earlier, Will Worthington. So he figured, I think compositionally, that he needed to have some darker color on this side to balance out this side and the middle. So you got dark, bright, dark colors. So that, I think, compositionally finishes off the card. Like I said, you sweep, you glide down from the majesty and the strength of the woman in the card, her red flowing cape, the strength and power of the boar, and then across to the sword that can denote many different things. Power. It's laying on the ground, so perhaps contemplating a time for peace, a time for compassion and coming together. It can denote many different things, a sword lying on its side. Unhandled, no hand grasping its hilt. All right. Love that card. Oh. Okay, the Hermit, folks. The Hermit is undoubtedly my favorite card, and I think most people's favorite card. And he has his companion, the wolf. And the first thing to me that is so spectacular in this card is the green sky. Look at that green sky. It just does something for this card. It takes my eyes, and it's almost as if I'm swirling around this green. It looks like it's moving, not angry, but just excited, and not excited, but not angry, not excited, just moving. It feels good. It's happy. It's moving. Yet it's a darker green color. It's not a bright color. It's just a darker, muted green. And then you focus in on the lantern. This, to me, I think, of all the cards I've seen of the Hermit, and I love every single one of them, I think this color of the sky with this palette of yellow, and how almost it's lighter here in the sky because you have the yellow going out and brightening a little bit around the Hermit's arm and the area around there. And then the moon doing its thing here. So it's connecting. The brightness, it's almost as if the Hermit is holding up his lantern to pledge allegiance with the moon, connecting both the moon, the lantern, and then himself, and by extension the wolf. Now, then as they move away, the sky moves away, it starts to get darker again. And down here, because it's further away, other clouds are lapping in to take away from the brightness and focusing it here. And there's enough brightness to show us some of the Hermit's face and his beard. And I like this ledge that he's walking on, because it seems as if they came from this way, they're stopping here, getting a look at the horizon, seeing which way they're going to go, contemplating their next journey. And here's the way down. Here's your way to get there. And it's a path that has been worn over time. So others have come this way. And you have to think, who came this way? Or perhaps this is just the 1000th journey of this particular hermit on this pathway to somewhere that he wants to be, needs to be, and his faithful companion is coming with him. Exceptional. I really love this deck. Okay, now we have the wheel. a fortune. Oh, really like this one. Now, in most cards, and this is just to my recollection, and I may be wrong because I haven't looked at nearly as many decks as a lot of very learned tarot aficionados out there. But I like the fact that the focal point of this card is the human being. She becomes the ring. She becomes the different fortunes on the ring as she's closing the earthen ring. And again, I go back to the fact that this is a Druid society. And outdoors is everything. And I like the way this is a cove. There's a cave here, and you can see the ocean here. And it's almost like a ring right here, a natural ring to give thanks and to hold ritual and to connect with Mother Earth and Mother Sky and the ocean and the air, all the elements. And the nonchalant way that she holds this pendant to me just shows that she is so comfortable in her surrounding and in putting this, drawing out this wheel in the sand, that it's just a natural activity for her. And she becomes, like I said initially, she becomes the wheel itself. And it's breathtaking. It pulls you in, and it says to you, I want to be her. I want to be that natural when I'm in nature. Or at least it denotes that to me. Exceptional card. Now we have Justice. All right. Now, this is what I call a Justice card. Of course, she has the sword. She has the scales of justice in this hand. I like this little crab here. I like this little crab, and I'll explain to you in a few seconds why. And the owl, which is my favorite of all creatures on earth, except for my fellow human beings. I like the owl. The wisdom inherent in that creature is just phenomenal. And as with most other Justice cards, her feet is out. I think in most other Justice cards, maybe 1 foot is out. Could be 2 in some, but not all. Most that I can recall, and again here I'm relying on my memory, so that's just a 50-50 shot right there at best. But it looks like she's got both feet out, just showing that I embody strength, balance, and therefore justice. But I am also part of the earth. I am also part of nature. Here's my foot to prove it. I'm not all encompassed in the position I hold. I am also part of nature, part of you, and I want justice for myself as well as you, and that's what connects me to you. Now this crab here, I like it because the darkness indicates that it's further, it's like it's going in, almost like a bushy cave, or a bushel that has a little cave in it that's been stepped into and patted down or something. And this crab is saying, okay, I'm gonna get me some protection in here. This is a good place to go live. And he's scrambling up to get in there. I like that. And because his color is brighter than the darkness, it pops it out right there in the corner. Look at the card as I'm speaking now. Look at the face of Justice. And capture the whole area here. Your peripheral vision still brings this crab into focus. And what it does for me, as I'm looking at it opens up the whole picture. The artistic nature of this brightness on this darkness opens up the whole picture, because my peripheral vision can focus on the whole thing, because it's still, even if it's looking here and taking in all the detail, and it's all gorgeous detail, my peripheral vision still sees this. And so it tells me that the whole card is alive. The whole card is what you need to look at. So compositionally, I adore that. I simply do. And of course, the colors, you know. You got this purple, and then you got this maroon and the gold. And the proportion of the sword to the proportion of the lady, the woman, is absolutely perfect. The length of the sword is absolutely perfect. And in regards proportionally to the owl, it's perfect. And what can I say about owls? They are perfect. I love owls. Gorgeous, gorgeous card. The Hanged Man. Okay, I don't know about you, but for me, this particular Hanged Man is one of the best I've ever seen. And the reason for that is it takes me to David, the great sculpture of David by Michelangelo. Not only because the male genitals are actually visual, or, you know, visible, I should say. And it denotes back to David in all his pristine nudity and being human. But look at the muscle tone on the legs and the muscle tone of the calf here. And the fact that the calf is toned because of the way the foot is, like this. You know, the foot is like this, bending forward. And so it puts a tone on the whole leg. So it reminds me of the great artistic paintings and sculptures of the old ancients in the Renaissance in Italy. Superb, superb. And the oak tree. What can I say? The preeminent tree in the world, I think, the oak tree. Very nice card, very nice. Death card. This card has all the imagery that you would associate with magic, I think. And of course, death is, in fact, the skull, the snake, the serpent, lurking, waiting to take the soul. The soul is escaping to heaven, it seems. The soul is escaping to heaven. And then this remnant of stone monoliths harkens you back to Stonehenge, which grabs me instantly because I have a fascination with Stonehenge. And the crow, or the raven, possibly a raven, possibly a hawk, possibly an eagle. I think raven. The spirit is coming, the spirit is strong, but it seems like it's on its way to heaven. So get out of the way. Nothing is stopping me. And that's the positive side of death for any of us, right? Any of us who have any fate, no matter what that fate is that when we die, there's an afterlife. So the positive part of death for any of us, the only thing can be is heaven, redemption, a new life, a new existence. Superb. The coloring again. Green with this red. The sickle. Again, I hearken back to the Stonehenge-looking monolith here. Just extraordinary. And her cauldron. Now that is what I call a cauldron. Look at the size of that thing. Look at the magnificence of the craftsmanship. And this face here, denoting something we don't know quite what, but it's dark. God knows what's in this vessel and that vessel. And here, one thing more I want you to notice before we leave this card is The spirit is going up to heaven. And look here when it enters the cloud. It's almost as if it's looking back, like a skull, looking back down at where it's been. And it's a moment of melancholy because it knows, I think, or it denotes to me that it knows that it's leaving its earthly remains behind, and its spirit is entering into the clouds and therefore off to heaven and perhaps a long and peaceful eternity. Extraordinary. Love this guy. And we have Temperance. Furlt. Wow. Again, look at the cauldron. Not quite the same cauldron as the death card, but as big. The bigness of it, for me, is what denotes its power. Temperance. Rainbow. Let's just look at it. Again, the proportions, composition, is so well structured that to just look at it makes you feel many different things, many different emotions, from happiness with the rainbow to a sacredness because of all of these symbolic things here in this symbol here, and the beauty of the woman and the bright colors that she wears, denoting that temperance has both its darker, moody side and its bright and lighted side. Very, very nice. Like it very much. Now we have the devil. First thing that I notice in this devil card are the chains that bind these two are their limbs. Her limb reaching out to him and thereby entangling him to her, and vice versa. And the way the horn of his head crown here touches hers, entangles itself with hers. And this is how they're bound to one another. And what it denotes to me is the mortal side of them versus the devil. In most other devil cards, it's the devil residing over the humans in bondage. Here it's like the devil is coming upon these two human beings who are connected to each other through their own free will. And you can see that there's a great affection for both. And he stands away from them a bit. He's not grasping for them. There's no tethers from him to them. He's just, he's at a moment of pause. Even as the devil, should I invade such a pristine relationship as this, as the devil that I am? Or will I give enough space, the natural space that nature provides, to be a force, but not encumber the force of gentleness on the side of mortal nature? And this is the first devil I see that seems to have a sense of pause. Even with his shoulders, it's a little, like it's a little slouched here, just a little bit on the shoulders. And his head is bent forward a little bit. It's almost as if he's looking at this scene and he's wondering, should I destroy such peace? Of course, the woodland surrounding is absolutely perfect. All right, that's the devil. Now we have the tower. Okay. First thing I notice on the tower cards is always I go to what kind of artistic time did they give to the lightning strike? I like the complexity of this lightning strike, you know. And I like the fact that when I look at it, this first tendril is the one that came down and drew first blood on the tower and obliterated part of the tower. But there's more coming. There's even more coming here and building. And God knows what's coiled up in here that will now come down and be part of the strike force. And the mortals know this. And the mortals jump. And what's the most precarious to me in this card, because it's a wide angle shot off the tower, is the juxtaposition of rock, cliff, and human. You don't know if they're going to make it. You don't know. Well, in all of them, you don't know if they're going to make it or not. They're just getting away from the devastation because they are mortal and they must flee. But here, is it cliffy enough on the other side of this stone that is straight up and down that perhaps she will fall past it, or he will fall past it into the water on this side? Here is the angle of thrust enough for this poor mortal to actually sail over these rocks into the water. The force of the blast, is it propelling her or him further enough in their trajectory to get beyond the waiting rocks below? And so as I look at this, I'm worried for them more so than I'm worried for the folks that I've seen in other cards based on the way the composition and juxtaposition of the mortals falling from the tower have been planted or positioned in the past cards that I've seen. Absolutely stunning. Now we have the star. You know what I like about this star? The fact that the star does not feel like it has to take center stage. And again, that goes to composition. Because no matter where you look, you remember the crab in the other card that we had? That your peripheral vision went straight to the crab. Let me see if I can find it. Sorry, you have to wait for me. I'll find it. Okay, right here with justice. You see how that crab, again, if you look at anywhere on this picture, your peripheral picks up that crab and it opens up the entire picture to you, as I was, in my opinion, as I was trying to explain. Here the star does the same thing. Look anywhere on the picture and your peripheral still picks up the star. But it doesn't have to be overwhelming this star. In a lot of the star cards, and it's beautiful, the other star cards are beautiful when they make the star out of the star. And it's the feature, the preeminent feature in the card. And that's wonderful. But here, I think what the artist has done is he subdued the star to a point that he left bright enough, although small, but bright enough that no matter where you look on this card, your peripheral vision picks up the star. So as you think of all the other majesty of this, water to land, water back to water, and the beautiful woman, and the gorgeous trees, and the monoliths here, and just the faded bit of moon here. When you're looking at all of that and you're intaking that beauty and everything that it means to you, the star is still preeminent in your thought because your peripheral picks it up the whole time. And that, to me, is almost a magical use of composition. He knew exactly where to place that star. He knew exactly how bright to make that star compared to the others and its surrounding, and the moon. Now, imagine if the moon was bright. If the moon were bright, it would take away from the composition of the peripheral strength of the star, because the moon is bigger and it's crescent. And who doesn't love a crescent moon? So if this were brighter, your peripheral would be more or less picking this up instead of this. So that's composition. That's knowing the composition of your artistic piece here. It is, again, the word I use is stunning. What a stunning piece of art. All right, now we have the moon. And again, he does the same thing here. He makes the moon even bigger than a peripheral point here. But still, it takes the top of your vision. The whole top of your peripheral vision is locked in on this moon. No matter if you're looking at the dog, at the water, the coyote here, you know, half of your peripheral is still up on the moon. The subtleness of it. But what really enhances the moon, in my view, artistically, is that he brightened up these clouds right here. Because what it does, it's like it creates a halo, a glow around the entire moon. So even if the moon is in crescent, you can still see the rest of the moon here, the more dormant as far as light is concerned. You know, the brightness that is being reflected to it from the earth, I mean the sun. You can still see it. And it makes the moon seem more tangible than that. So you're not looking at just a crescent, you're looking at a crescent moon. And that's what comes to me. This is not just a crescent in the sky that's lovely because it's a crescent, but it reminds you that there's a whole other big bit of planet that's part of that crescent. Of course, the monoliths, the dogs. Look at the creature coming out here. Again, a crab. And some of it, you know, it's lobsters. I think in the RWS deck, it is a lobster, and I've always loved that lobster, and will always love that lobster. But I like crabs. Crabs are a fascinating creature, and now he has this crab coming up here. But, again, what comes to me is, most of the other lobsters or whatever is coming out of the water, whatever creature is being used to come out of the water on the other moon cards, they always have them coming out right on the trail, you know? Right on the trail. So it's like, just get up there and walk. This guy is coming up a cliff of a stone here, you know? So he's going to have to do a lot of work to get up of this cliff and then scramble down so he can get to the path. And to me, that gives the card and the composition of the art a more energetic feel. It's like, this guy's going to have to do some work to get where he needs to be. And it just brings a smile to my face because it makes me think that. In other words, it gives life again to the whole card. It gives more of a movement to the whole card. I really like that. Very nice, very nice. Now we have the sun. I like this sun. And I'll tell you why. Obviously, I'm going to tell you why. Or I wouldn't be making this video, right? This child, if you look at the expression of the face, it seems to me this is the only place he would want to be, or she would want to be. It's, you know, obviously the body is androgynous at this age, but, you know, I'm going to say he's exactly where he wants to be. He's exactly comfortable. And you see how his legs are splayed like this, going over the horse's neck? It's because he's a small little kid. And he has to splay himself and get further up on the neck where it's not as broad as the middle of the horse, as the back of the horse. This is where he has to be on the horse in order to get his legs over the horse. And I'm sure that this hand is grasping gently some of the mane to keep himself fixated. He's got his harp here. And then, artistically, I like the sun burst right in the back of his head. And he's got this flaming red hair, ginger hair. And the glow that comes forward. does not put him completely in silhouette. Because if you got this much glow behind you, usually you're going to be almost in complete silhouette. But the artist renders him in darkness, but not in silhouette. So you can tell that the radiance of the sun is flowing forward as well, and coming forward even if it's behind him, to flesh out the redness of his hair, the blueness of his eyes, the redness of his cheek. He's winded a little bit because he's riding a horse. And if you've ever ridden a horse, it's a task. I mean, it's a wonderful task, but it's a task, and you have to use your legs to stay on the horse and guide the horse and everything else. So he's a little flushed here, but if this glare, and the artist said, with this glare, I have to put him more in silhouette. I think it would have taken away, obviously, from the detail we see on the face and the body of the child. But it has to be dark enough in the right places to denote the fact that there's brightness behind this object or this presence. But enough to say, well, there's enough radiance in the sun to at least flesh out his face and let you see his face. So compositionally, it's not supposed to be this way. In reality, if the sun were behind here, bright like this, all of this would be in silhouette. So in reality, this could not happen. But as a piece of art, it has enough of a silhouette-like darkness to it that it works. It absolutely works. And I like this little house here. Almost looks like a hobbit house, in a hill, right? I think that might be like a domicile here. Very nice card. Now we got Judgment. Okay, I like Judgment. Blowing his horn. And it seems to me like this figure here, his case has just been adjudicated, and he's been called from the labyrinth to be reborn into a different life, into a different existence, perhaps a spiritual existence. Just outstanding. And I like the way they focus on the fact that Judgment is calling you one by one, and you are coming out. Again, this reminds me of Stonehenge, so I immediately love it. But, you're being judged one by one. You're not all reaching up toward that judgment at once. You're one by one. You're being looked at as an individual. Judgment blares his horn, and you are released. Gorgeous. Look at the rock work. Look at this rock work. Just phenomenal rock work. And to just fill my spirit with happiness, you have a hair. Look at that hair. Just dynamic. Dynamic. Imagine if the hair wasn't here and there was just another bush. The card would look gorgeous even then. But with the hair here, again, like with the crab on the bottom coming up, where usually there's a lobster on the moon card, and the little crab in the bush from earlier. This thing gets your bottom peripheral. Not quite peripheral, but a horizontal peripheral, because it gives your whole bottom peripheral a focus. And so the card doesn't stop right here when you're looking at it. The card extends itself. The artwork extends itself. So again, the purpose of this type of composition, to me, as a person feasting their eyes on it, is you want to give life to the whole card. So the rock work here makes this part of the card alive. Of course, the lone figure coming through the threshold gives it life. Judgment with his horn gives it life. And the hair down here gives it even more life. I mean, not just floral. This is flora life. This is fauna. This is actually a mammal here. And it just gives a whole delectable enlightenment of life to the whole composition. Outstanding. Okay, now we got the world. All right. So this is the last of the major arcana. Okay. Okay. Now, I like, and this has nothing to do with sexuality or anything, but I like the placement of the fig leaf because, again, it gives you a focus point where otherwise you would not want to put your focus because you might be a little embarrassed. Like, okay, I'm staring, and you feel a little embarrassed even if you're just, nobody knows what you're looking at in the card. But the fig leaf here, I think, focuses us in on the fact that there is a human presence in the world. And that is the guiding presence of our world as we know it. But then you have the wand, the sword, the cup, and the pentacles, and all the meanings that come along with them. So it's a wide world, focused in on a human being, yet with all the possibilities surrounding it. Yeah. There's no peripheral point on this one. I mean, except these things, but there's no specific peripheral point. And I think the reason there's not a peripheral point on this one is because the artist wants you to focus in on this. Excellent, excellent. All right, well, I'm going to stop the review at the end of the major arcana. I'll come back again in the future and do a art review on the minor arcana. But I think I've been online long enough, and you're probably all getting a little bit weary of my droning on. So let's call it a day on this one. Kindest thoughts to you all, and I'll see you next time. Aloha.